Many 3D software programs now offer tools that are called sculpting tools. And over the last 15 or so years, tools like ZBrush and others have really popularized this task of sculpting your models versus just building with polygons and points and vertices. Blender is no exception and has a tab up at the top of your screen that will switch you into something called sculpting mode, so that way you can get finer detail from your models using a process that's very similar to painting in 3D. The tools that you'll use during sculpting are referred to as brushes and that sort of thing. So it really does feel like you are just brushing detail onto your model. And here I wanted to talk through just some of the many tools that are available in the sculpt mode. However, I won't go through all of them, so it's important that you spend some time in the variety of options that are found here in the sculpt mode. And one thing I want to point out, if you didn't notice that, I was actually scrolling the toolbar on the left with my scroll wheel because there are many options within the sculpting interface. So let's talk through a few of those now. All right. First, on the left-hand side where our tools live, we have the Draw tool, probably the most common, the most basic. The Draw tool, if you go anywhere on your model, so let's just say like the forehead of this character, and just start to draw on it, you'll see that it's starting to pull out that surface. Now, I say you'll see it, but really you don't. The radius of my brush might be too small. My strength might be less pronounced than it needs to be. So I'm going to change some settings into more extreme cases just so you can see the change on my scene more readily. So first things first, I'm going to jack up the strength value up to 1.0. I'm also going to increase my radius a little bit. You can increase your radius in this interface up here, but I'm used to increasing radius with the bracket keys from Photoshop. So if I just blew your mind with that hotkey, in Blender, you can increase or decrease your brush size using the bracket keys on your keyboard, but guess what? That hotkey works in Photoshop and other drawing programs as well. Super helpful as you kind of become digital painters and 3D painters now to manage your brush size. So 1.0 strength, radius, a little bit bigger, and as I'm drawing now with my mouse and just kind of like brushing over that space, you can see that it's pulling out that geometry, kind of bulging it out quite a bit more. Using that increased strength is very helpful. Now, if I have the radius extra large, you're going to see as I just kind of like scrub over that space, it is ballooning that geometry out quite a bit with the greater radius. I can actually increase my strength beyond 1 if I just type it in. So this is one of those interfaces very common in tools like After Effects and others. The max value when you slide is going to be up to 1 initially. But if I just type in a greater number, like say 10, I can have a strength of 10 and really smash this guy out to the point where it actually kind of obliterates the object. If I have higher values. So maybe just type in 1 or 2 and we call that good. You can change some of these settings over on the right hand side. We can add and we can subtract value. So if we wanted to like smash in this shape using these tools, we can. And we can change the radius here of our shape. So we've got the normal radius and the radius, of course. As well as we can change the hardness, so how hard our shape is. So whether we want it to be smooth or really smash in that form is controlled by that hardness. There's also an auto smoothing setting, so we can turn that up and it'll try to smooth out any maneuvers that we do, preventing those sharp and jagged polygons from showing up. There are a few advanced tools that we won't really get into, things related to masking and that sort of thing, and texture and Dyne Topo, which does dynamic topology, that we won't mess with just yet. All right, we have Draw Sharp, which is a little bit more of a crisp drawing tool. You notice our strength reset, so we want to increase that. We can change it back to the direction of additive. And then we can get into some of these others. The clay tool is similar to the others. It just gives you a bit of a plane control, so that way you can kind of force it to act on one plane over another. I don't know if this one will immediately be useful to you or not. So I'm going to step through. We have clay strips, we have clay thumbs, so it's like kind of using it to like smash some of this shape. The one I use pretty frequently is inflate. Inflate is going to, gotta remember to bring up my strength, it's just going to allow you to kind of bulge out a shape a little bit more, which is going to feel a little similar to draw. So if you haven't noticed, some of these tools are, because of the lack of geometry here, are kind of making it look like they all do about the same thing. Versus seeing like this very smooth drawing that we have over here, we're not quite seeing the benefit of some of these tools. So I'm going to make a few changes, and then maybe we'll get some better results. All right, change a few settings just to see if I could get you some better results. And the results, I added a subdivision surface to this that had a 5 and 5 division there, and then going back into sculpting, using a slightly larger radius with a strength of 2 is seeming to get some better results. Now I'm still getting a little bit of lag because obviously I'm recording these videos while working through this process, but we're getting a little bit better result there. So now if we do something like, say, attempt a inflate like this one here, we're getting a much better result, a more noticeable result. It's just something that I have to take it a little bit slow while I'm recording the video, just because it's pulling on my processor a little bit more. So thanks for bearing with that process. There are a few others here, like we'll see like creases. It can do things like add some nice like negative space, or if you want to like crease this geometry there and create a really precise valley around that edge. You can do that there and almost get some like cloth-like effects, some real yeah, just interesting results. And as I'm just kind of like mashing things around here, the thing I want to impress upon you is that a combination of these tools is really what's going to work best. So the idea of using like a draw tool to say create, we'll say a positive space there. Let's add like, say, you know, like a furrowed brow area, and then using a crease to really inset that area, and then maybe an inflate to bulge out like a nose shape. We can get the impression of, say, like a face here from those few techniques. As you know, unclear or abstract as that may be, you kind of get the spirit of it, is that we'll get into you know, working with a combination of these tools to get the best possible results. Maybe punch up the cheeks over there a little bit, get this to look a little bit more face-like. I'm skipping a few here, but I'd like to go down to the these manipulation tools, one of which is grab. Grab really just works by grabbing a selection of points within the influence, and you can just pull them. I find this is nice in a very particular view, just to grab points and just kind of almost like a mesh warp, just kind of put them where you want them to be. So let's say I wanted to pull this like nose area out, I could simply get into a proper angle and just grab those points and just pull. So I find this one is a very kind of what you see is what you get. You do have to be careful about what angle you're in to get the results that you want. But it's a good just kind of tool for pushing and pulling things, even with a slightly larger influence. It tends to get pretty good performance and results out of Blender. So yeah, so grab is a one that I use pretty commonly. There are a few others down here that I'd encourage you to play around with. Nudging and, you know, scraping, filling, smoothing, that sort of thing, and just kind of develop a comfort for what these tools can do for you. And of course, this is one where the tools are so varied and so numerous that reflecting on and referring to the Blender documentation might be a helpful reference for you in this particular case. So experiment, explore, and have some fun with these tools.